I really believe there are things nobody would see if I didn't photograph them.
Take pictures of what you fear. Hey, welcome to the Street Shots Photography Podcast. This is Antonio.
And this is Ward.
And this is episode 192 for the end of September 2023. And there we go. We're ready to rock.
Another, what do we call it? The autumnal equinox.
Oh, yes, yeah. Well,
which I think was on the 23rd.
We were covered in rain, I think, that day.
Well, yeah, I think it was pretty warm here. I seem to remember doing some yard work.
We've got the remnants of a hurricane hitting us.
And there's another one coming too, isn't there?
Oh, geez. Really?
Maybe it's still down there by the Florida area.
Yeah, we're going to get hit with another. Well, I feel bad for anybody who's in those areas that get hit really bad with hurricanes. I mean, I wouldn't call what we had anything, close to that. It was just we've had rain for 3 or 4 days. I guess the system stalled on the coast for a little while.
Okay.
It's been churning and it's just been gray. And then the result of that is I haven't been going out as much because I'm not going out, and even though my cameras are water resistant, I don't really feel like photographing in the rain.
No.
So, yeah. But for anybody who's getting hit by hurricanes, I hope that doesn't happen. So, but yeah. I'm thinking, as we're talking about this, I'm thinking, it was almost about a year ago since you visited.
That's right. October something or other, 10th?
October 10th is when you came in, right? Yeah. So it's hard to believe that's a year. That seems not that long ago.
I know. It's crazy.
Yeah. And
but I remember it like it was yesterday. There's no doubt about that. I see those pictures and I'm like, yep.
Are you still processing those pictures?
No, I'm still looking at them. I haven't really since my project when I drove out to Saskatchewan there last month. I haven't really done much in terms of processing, with the exception of a Fuji sponsored show that I went to a couple of weekends or a couple of weeks ago. Oh goodness, maybe it's even been a month ago now.
Oh,
yeah.
No. But those are. You still have some pictures from your trip which you haven't processed.
That's true. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I guess I've done a second revisit. I haven't done a third revisit. They're pictures that come out of the catalog that didn't really pique my interest before, and I'm kind of going in another layer. Some of the interior pictures that we took, I haven't really.
Interiors from the museums. From
the museums and from the old postal building, the old post office.
Oh, I
building.
see. Right. Yeah. Which is partially postal building and partially a train station, the Moynihan train station. Yeah.
Penn Station, and what else is there inside? Some of the entrance to the zoo. There, well, there's that picture of that Board family. There's some other pictures.
In Central Park.
In Central Park, yeah.
All right. Well, that's cool.
And some street stuff, some streety stuff when we're walking up and down 5th and Broadway.
Well, winter's coming up.
Yep.
It's a good time to.
Bored, I'll go through there. Absolutely.
Yeah. I was actually going through. Oh, first of all, let me just say we don't really have a subject tonight. So
our subject is no subject.
Our subject is no subject. Here. Yeah, we had such a great guests on our last episode. I'm still reeling from that, and that will actually. Well, I'll bring that up a little bit later. So it's partially what I want to talk about.
Cool.
Those are our guests from last time. But I too have been going through Lightroom and scouring for something. I can't remember what I was looking for. Some old pictures, but it forced me to sort of go back and look for. I can't remember what I was looking for, but I was looking through a lot of my street shots, little brand
photography shots.
That was a little name dropping there.
Weirdly, yes, circular references.
Meta thing. Anyway, and looking back at some of my old street photography. I mean, old. I mean, it's stuff that I did in like 2016, 2017, and was still surprised by it. Like there were some pictures that I don't remember taking at all. And there's actually a lot that I didn't process too. So what I was remembering was my workflow at the time was to take pictures with my X100T and then upload them to my phone, select a few and then process them and then put them on Instagram, which meant that there was a lot of pictures that I didn't process. Like I might have picked one or two. And so I was looking at this stuff, like the sort of the contact strips of pictures that I haven't been touched. And I was like, I took that. I didn't remember that. And it's like, oh, that looks good. And so just like you're saying is, when winter comes, I think I'm going to go back through the sort of the unprocessed stuff and see what lies in that group. There's probably a lot of garbage too. I mean, I can probably start deleting things.
Yeah, but garbage teaches you some stuff too, though, right?
Yeah, it does.
I know that there were editors and people at Magnum that want to see your contact sheet because they could see how you're thinking. I love that. I love the whole
context.
idea
Oh,
of
that is such a good idea. But I mean, how do you do that with digital?
Well, you go through the thumbnail view, and I forget what that display is called in Lightroom. That's what I do.
But with film, like there's no way to fool anybody because you've got the strips and you see the numbers on the edge of the strips. But with digital, if someone wanted to see my film strips, I could be like, "Oh, okay, hang on a minute."
I meant for myself though. I mean, I'm going to go through
true.
it and then I can recreate in my mind or remind myself what on earth was I doing there.
Yes, right.
I love that.
Yeah.
I like the idea of doing that
and trying to figure out the context. Like, where was I going? What was I doing? What was I thinking? What was I seeing in this picture or like in this scene? What was interesting about it to me? Because it's certainly a lot different now than when I was there. It's in this case like 2016, 7-year difference, maybe 8-year difference in some of the pictures. Mindset was a lot different. So anyway, it was just interesting to go back through the older stuff and see. Oh, right, and that was the realization was. Yes, I remember my workflow because I would pick 1 or 2 pictures, throw them on Instagram, and then I was sort of done. I didn't look at the other pictures, then I would dump them into Lightroom. And so there's got to be some treasures in there that I should go and look for. And perhaps, here's some news, perhaps reload them or upload them to my new Instagram account.
Get out. I thought you were done with that.
Well, yeah. I was done because it was an enforced done.
Right.
If my account wasn't hacked, I would have kept it. I would have just kept doing what I've been naturally doing. The fact that it was shut off from me and that Instagram and Facebook are doing absolutely zero to help get it back to me. Oh, by the way, if there's anybody out there who has any kind of in to Facebook or Instagram, let me know. Drop us a line. I would still like to get that account back. But anyway, yes. So it was April of 2022 that it got hacked, and it was some guy in Nigeria, literally, because I might have told you this, but my brother actually FaceTimed him. I've got a screenshot of the guy, and we tried to buy it back from the guy, and he just wouldn't. He would say no. And my brother said this to the guy. He said, trying to get some sympathy from the guy, says, talking about in reference to me, he goes, my brother, whose account that was, he's not too smart, and so he got away. And so what I did was I went and I made a selfie of myself, and I did 2 exposures. I did one with my eyes looking at the camera, and then I did a second exposure where I didn't move my face, I moved my eye looking to like the right. And then I pieced them together in Photoshop so that one eye was straight, the other eye was like cockeyed, and I was making a really stupid face. And I sent it to my brother. I said, send this to the guy to just prove that I'm not the smartest human being on the planet or something like that. Anyway, so where was I going with this? Anyway, so yeah, the account's hacked, and Facebook and Instagram, all the jumping through hoops and calls. I even got myself verified on Facebook. They have that verification. A little stupid blue check mark now. Yeah. Which I'm paying $11 a month for, something like that, which I'm probably going to get rid of because I only got it because you can get to talk to some human being.
Right.
Apparently on Facebook, which I haven't yet talked to, a human being. I've gotten to chat with. Anyway, long story, that count was done, but for a couple of things that are coming up, which we can talk about in the course of this podcast. I've got a show coming up this week, which for people listening to the show, it'll already have passed. It'll be like one day before. On the 28th of September, I have a show opening at a coffee shop. I just realized I need to have everybody's wanting to see pictures or wanting to connect. And, Twitter is the dumpster, or X is a dumpster fire. Nobody's using that anymore. And, frankly, there are people who are not using Facebook. I mean, I put a lot of my stuff in Facebook, and Facebook has got that, half people do it and half people don't do it.
Right.
Even though Instagram is Facebook. So I decided this week to start firing up another Instagram account. And I'm really bummed out because I want my name back. I like my name.
Yeah.
But I got a name which was my name, A.M. Rosario Photo. So I thought that was reasonable because it still has A.M. Rosario in it. Because all my accounts or my website is amrosario.com. So I like A.M. Rosario. And it's a shorter version of my name. It's easier to type than Antonio M. Rosario. I like my name, but you know what I mean. It's less things to type.
You got to make people are typing it.
Yeah. So A.M. Rosario Photo on Instagram. And why did I bring this up? Oh, because now I can start populating it with some pictures that I didn't ever show before. And I had something like 2,000 shots on my last account. I'm not going to rehash those. I'm really sort of starting fresh. Mm-hmm. But I had something like 2,000 something followers. And so it's starting from scratch again. I don't know how many of those were bots or fake people or, whatever. So, So anyway, that's not why I was going through my Lightroom library, but I realized, this is what I can do because the street photography is kind of timeless. Doesn't, evergreen as we
I think the way people are dressed and some of the storefronts and the vehicles in the background, that's what, piques my interest. If you shoot wide enough that you see cars, and the style of the street signs, that's I look at the stuff that I shot in 2014, 2015. It's the same.
And you see a difference?
I see downtown Calgary's changed enough over the years. New buildings, new construction, old buildings knocked down. You think, I forgot that old hotel was still standing. It was abandoned, but it was still standing. And then they, blah blah blah. You've got these little timelines of things being there, not being there anymore.
That's true. Downtown Brooklyn, where there's a good chunk of pictures that I took because I would do this on my way to the job that was at Brick, downtown Brooklyn. Some of the buildings that you can't recognize downtown Brooklyn. I mean, there are buildings popping up everywhere. And right next door to Brick, there used to be this 99-cent store that I didn't, we would go buy things if we needed them, there really quickly. But it was destined to be knocked down. And but I got some fun shots out in front of it, and certain people I have this shot of this guy delivering. We have this brand of potato chip called Utz, UTZ. And there's a whole bunch of boxes, and all you see these two legs. This guy's carrying this 6 foot, 7 foot stack of boxes, and you just see these two legs underneath it. And he was going to that 99-cent store. Anyway, it's a picture I've always wanted to take. I'll try to put that in the show notes.
That'd be cool.
Let me make sure. Yeah. And now they knocked all that down, and they're putting up some 30-story monstrosity up there, and they did it really fast. So that whole area has changed. There's a building in downtown Brooklyn that looks like it's straight out of the Lord of the Rings. On the top should be a glowing red eye in fire. It literally looks like one of the two towers, the Tower of Mordor. I mean, it's really weird. It's this black kind of monolithic, although it does taper towards the top. But anyway, you wouldn't recognize it. So yeah, I guess you're right. And even in 7 years,
does the eye of Sauron point towards Midtown Manhattan?
It just keeps looking. It just sort of zips around and looks. Right. It sends evil, beams at Manhattan. Actually, from a certain distance in Brooklyn, if you look at the skyline of downtown Brooklyn when it compresses with the skyline of New York, you can't tell the difference between the two. Because downtown Brooklyn now has got, this building is actually the tallest building in Brooklyn. It's one of the tallest in New York City. It's huge. I mean, it's, I don't know. It's not quite World Trade Center or Empire State Building center size, but Empire State Building. But it's tall. It's the tallest building in Brooklyn. And up until that point, the tallest building in Brooklyn was the Williamsburg Bank Building, which is this old, you know, from the 30s or 20s, I can't remember when it was built, with a big clock in it. If you're anywhere in Brooklyn, you know that's like sort of the landmark. You know where you are.
Yeah, know you are.
But anyway, yes, the pictures, I can see what you're saying. That I don't necessarily see the clothing differences so much, but certainly the scenery and stuff like that, and even in just the way I capture pictures, you know, that affects things. So
yeah, it's like I had a ways to go here.
Yeah.
And my flirtation with shooting on the subway too, on the train, I was too tentative, and I mean, some of my later stuff I'm very proud of because I got exactly what I wanted. In the old days, it was, you know, trying to be covert. I must have looked like an idiot, you know, trying to line up and not look like I was trying to line up. It's just stupid.
Probably didn't look
I got
as
over
bad
that,
as,
thankfully.
You know, Walker Evans with his little lens sticking out of his overcoat. Yeah, with Helen Levitt, you know, being his beard. So he didn't seem like such a weirdo. So yeah, to segue a little bit, I am having a show coming up this Thursday, the 28th. That's the opening. So I'll just announce it. It's at, you know, if anybody who's listening to the show is in Brooklyn and wants to come by, you won't be able to come to the opening because the show will be released after the opening, but the show will be up. So far, we don't know how long. I mean, I'm assuming I'm going to want to keep it up for 2 or 3 months at the most. I don't want to keep it longer because I don't want it to become furniture. But the place is called Blue Star Parlor, and it's 1112 Cortelyou Road, Brooklyn. And so I wanted to announce that if anybody's in the neighborhood and wants to stop in and see the show, it's going to be 12 prints on a wall. The show's called 11218 Plus, which is the name of my zines, which I can't remember if we talked about them here. Yeah. But that refers to the zip code that I live in, and the plus refers to the little outlying areas that I'm able to walk in and beyond my zip code. But I like the name. And so I've been doing some tests about how to hang the show. So I thought this was interesting to talk about. You've been there, but it's one part of the wall is exposed brick, and, you know, hanging on exposed brick is tricky. Now, he has not had a show in this place before, so he was looking to me to get some advice about how to hang what kind of hardware to put up. And I initially suggested, because I had 2 shows prior on the same kind of walls in 2 different places, and they used electrical conduit piping, and that actually worked really well. And they had mounted it, I guess because they were always having a lot of shows, but they had mounted it with these little sort of U-shaped clamps, and they drilled it into the brick, not into the mortar. No, they couldn't do it in the mortar.
No, there's no.
Anyway, I don't remember. Yeah, it depends how far you go down, because he's got, right now in this place, he's got things that are screwed into the mortar. He had a giant shelf that was in the mortar. Anyway, whatever. Too much detail. So this conduit was lined up on these walls. When you use these things called molding hooks, these sort of S-shaped flat hooks, and they fit perfectly on that conduit. And then from that, you can hang anything, any kind of wire or stuff like that. And so I used to use chain, and my prints are mounted on foam core board. So that way I didn't have to frame them, because framing is expensive. And
you get a floating sort of look like a low too, key. Right?
Yeah, I got a floating look. And Elizabeth had come up with this idea about using this like chain with a S hook on the bottom of it, on the bottom of sort of the triangle. So that way I could adjust the length very easily by just unhooking the S hook and then go 1 or 2 links. And that would allow me to make things ever, even. Anyway, I had suggested that to him. And he wasn't necessarily unkeen with it, but he came up with a different idea about using a steel wire, a heavy duty steel wire with a turnbuckle on it, and he's using that right now to. Yeah, so he can tighten it up, and right now he's using it to hang his menus on near the bottom of the tables. And I was initially okay with that, and then I started thinking about it because he'd have to mount it up high. That the chains that I would have to get, and they're really small chains, but enough of them with prints would start to weigh
12,
the weight.
13 prints. Yeah.
12 or 13 prints, and even with the cord, with a turnbuckle tightened, this wire, I think there would still be curvature. Even if he uses eyelets, to support the wire, maybe he'd have to use a lot of eyelets because I think there would still be some sag. And that required me buying a lot more chain, and I can't find the chain. So I'm thinking, how am I going to hang this stuff up? So this batch of pictures I did also printed on foam board, on black foam board, to try to keep the cost down. And boy, print costs have gone up. I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but like I made 20 by 20 squares for my last show, and I don't remember them being this expensive. And these I was going smaller size prints. I'm sorry, I'm getting a lot more detail here, but it's photography. We can talk about this.
Yeah, stuff.
It's stuff. It's the things that we need to talk about, like to deal with, because if you want to have a show, you really have to think about this stuff. So I went with smaller prints. I went 16 by 24. I was initially going to go 20 by 30. I'm glad I didn't. I printed one test 20 by 30, and I'm going to have one print in the show that's 20 by 30 because I've got all these fire hydrants, this sort of typology of fire hydrants. But I'm glad I didn't go with 20 by 30. First of all, the print, it was like 60 or 70 bucks a print. And then I think it would just take.
Wow, that's like big. Retail when you would sell them for retail.
Yeah, they were.
Bucks.
It was.
Yeah.
It was expensive. So, and the print itself is not expensive, but when you add the backing to it, it's the backing that. It's almost doubles the price. Yeah. Anyway, so I'm looking at this wall. It's fairly good shape. The bricks are fairly even and fairly flat. They're a little rough. I mean, it's like an old brick building, but I came up with a system which I think will work. And the system is I'm making these little. I'm going to call them spacers. That's not the right word. I took a strip of foam core board and I cut it into little 2 by 2 squares, and I stacked them together so that I stacked 4 of them together so there's a bit of a space, or let's call it, for that lack of a better word, because I can't think of one right now.
Yeah. And
I taped it together with gaff tape so that they're held together. So it's basically a little 2 by 2 cube, not quite a cube, made of foam board. So it's very light. And then I used this 3M, 2 different 3M, those 3M sticky strip stuff. 3M has got all these different adhesive kind of things that you can buy, like hooks and stuff like that.
Yeah, the Commander or whatever is the one that the
Command stuff, right? The 3M Command or Scotch Command. I can't remember what a Scotch
or whichever. Yeah,
those anyway. So there's one that's like a Velcro. And then there's other ones that are like gummy sticks, like gummy sticky, strips. And the gummy sticky strips, I'm using 2 of them to adhere the little spacer to the brick. One reason I'm using that, I was thinking I could use hot glue, but hot glue is not reliable, and I don't want to damage. It's going to
melt the foam. Yeah, it's going to melt your foam too if it comes in contact.
Well, maybe. I don't really care because there's gaff tape on it, so I don't think it would really melt.
Oh, right.
But anyway, I use these adhesive gummy strips, and I stuck them onto the wall. I'm doing 3 of these spacers per print, and then the side that's attached to the print is using these Velcros, and I'm doing it in a T shape. So the spacer has a horizontal Velcro strip, and the print will have a vertical Velcro strip. That way, I can adjust, and I can be not exact, right? I don't have to be exact, and I just press it in, and I put up 2 prints. I'll put the pictures up in the show notes, but I put up 2 prints already for tests just to see it works, and it holds them solid. These things are not coming off the wall, and because the prints are light, So and what's nice is the prints float off the wall, so the built-in drop shadow.
Right.
So we're recording on Monday. Wednesday is the day that I'm scheduled to go in and hang the show. Adhere the show, I should say. And with any luck, I'll be able to get it done within a few hours. I have Thursday also during the day to do that. But it's a nice system. And once I have a laser level so I can make sure, I think I'm going to line up all the bottoms, I think. Still haven't figured that out, how I want to design the thing. But I think all the bottoms will line up except for the 20 by 30, which I think I'll let drop down a little bit and be a center line with the, I don't know. I don't know if that will work because I have horizontals and verticals. Anyhow, long-winded story about mounting these things, but it's interesting it's a nice challenge to try to figure out how to hang these things and make it look good. And I think the system I came up with is good. And even if the bricks are a little off, I think it's okay. I mean, it's a little rustic and a little homemade looking, but it's a lot less expensive to have them, not have them framed. And it's also, I'm not sure what the turnout of the show is. And so I'm not sure how much I want to invest, but it's really nice having these, 16 by 24 is actually a pretty decent sized print, So
and they're on, there are tables like against the wall where your prints are hanging, right? So you're already standing 6 feet away from them, right? Or however long or however wide those tables are.
Yeah, no, well, not all the tables are actually literally against the wall. So if someone's sitting there, they'll be sort of underneath the print, so it'll be pretty close. I didn't want to make them too small because the wall is 35 feet long.
Right.
So if I made
I was just saying that I was just saying the size is good. Your 16 by 24 is good because you are going to be standing at least 4 or 6 feet away to begin with, right?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Yes. For anybody's viewing it, or if they're just walking, through the cafe to go to the back and out to the backyard or something like that, it will be a decent size. And that's why I'm glad I didn't go the 20 by 30s because I think it would have been way too big. It's just, it's a narrow space. And so I don't need them that big. And 16 by 24, when you actually see a print made that size, it doesn't sound big, but then when you look at it, it's like, holy crap, this is big. Yeah. It's a big print, So, so I'm having them done at this place called Printique, which is a Adorama. If you know the camera store Adorama, it's their print service, and they have the printer place in Brooklyn, so I can actually go there and get it done. But I'm sorry, I'm spending a lot of time on this, but what happened was I got all the prints back. I did one test and it was really good. And so I did them all and I got them back, and one print was totally messed up. And it was one of my favorite shots of the hatted gentleman walking down the street and sort of silhouette.
Shadows.
The shadows, black and white. And for some reason, all the black parts looked like they had been in a waffle iron. There were some of these these squares that were visible in all the black parts, and so I went back to
kind
the
of
place,
digital interpolation thing, JPEG artifact.
It looked like, well, no, it looked like a waffle iron. I mean, it looked like literally like they had put it in a waffle iron and it got like somehow pressed into the print. But even though it was actually it was physically part of the print, it wasn't like a physical damage to the print. So I had to drive back there. And I showed the guy, and he was like, "Oh yeah, okay. Oh, sorry." I said, "Do you need a new file?" He goes, "No." And I checked the file, and I whacked out Photoshop on it, and I didn't see anything. I whacked out the levels. It was Zippo, nothing. So I knew it was in the file. So they got it back like a day or two later. I drove over there, and this time I had to open it while I was there. I opened it up, and it was the same problem. And this was on Friday. And I'm like, I've got a week for the show. So I basically sat there in the waiting room while they actually tried to tackle the problem. And they kept running prints and they kept getting the same results. And they finally darkened a little bit and they still had the same results. And they're going to get it redone. But one of the issues might be, and I don't believe this can be a total issue, is that I had upsampled the image using Topaz. One of the Topaz apps, I think it was Gigapixel I used,
right?
Or Topaz Photo AI. Do you know those apps?
Yeah, I'm aware of them. Yeah, I don't have them, but
yeah,
I know what they are.
So I had to upsample this a little bit because of this, because of the size or something like that. Maybe I can't remember why I upsampled it. or it was already upsampled, and they thought that might have been the problem. I don't think it was a problem because I had a second image that I had upsampled with Topaz, and it didn't have these little squares on it. But so I was without a print, and I was like, okay, this is not good.
Right.
And they said, well, and they were really helpful. I mean, they were, the manager was there and printing and trying to call the print guy and just figuring stuff out. And I was like there for 40 minutes. So they ultimately gave me a refund just because I was sitting there waiting. Mm-hmm. So that was nice. They're going to reprint it. And I took one of the prints that they had that wasn't too bad, but I could still see it, but it was, but it wasn't good, but it was like, and I'm going to use it as a placeholder. And I don't think the normal person can see it.
You're not going to sell that picture, but it's there. Yeah.
I'm not going to sell, I wouldn't sell that physical one. And even if I'm selling prints, like I'm going to sell prints from the show, I'm not pulling them off the wall that day,
True enough.
to sell them. If, I'll put a little red dot or something like that. So there's a lot of options to get it reprinted or, and they're going to be reprinting it. They're just closed today because of the Jewish holiday. So tomorrow they're going to hopefully have it, and we'll go and pick it up. And Wednesday, if it's good, then I'll just substitute that print for the one I got. Anyway, it's a whole to do with this. Yeah. I haven't hung a show or put a show together in a while, and I forgot sort of how much effort there is into it. And it's, I'm still working on stuff too. I'm like, I got a notepad here, like, I got to get a guest book because I like people to sign a guest book, and I got to figure out how I want to market my zines there. And there's a few other things. I don't think I'm going to put nameplates underneath the images, but then I got to print a sheet that has the captions on it and stuff like that. And I had to write an artist statement, and advertising it. I wasn't very good at advertising it. So it's, I'm hoping there'll be a decent turnout, but I'm a little late on that. And it was very rainy this weekend, so I couldn't go out and hang posters. Right. And stuff. But the one thing I liked about it was there's some physical things I had to do. Like I printed out my artist statement and I adhered that to some foam core board, and I had to do cutting with an X-Acto blade and be very careful with that. And there's like a lot of hand-on stuff. Yeah. Which is, I forgot, I don't mind doing this, like the hands-on stuff. So anyway, long story. Sorry. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. Actually, it's part of. No,
it's cool. I think it's part of the greater hobby. I talk about photo books all the time. You're talking about shows, so I think that's good. So if we could segue a bit from a show that you're putting together.
Before we do that, can we just? You just reminded me of something. I had put together the order of the prints, and our brother in light, Mark Reierson. Because I put it up on our unusual collective Discord channel, and he asked if that was the order that I was really going to. He said it. He said, I can't remember how he said it, but it was a nice way of asking if that was the order I was going to do. And I said, I don't know. I was thinking about it, but I said, do you have any suggestions? Anyway, he ended up getting online. We did one of those shared Miro. Was it Miro boards? Sort of
Miro,
like the freeform boards,
yeah,
or the way we were
sessions,
doing our zine.
Yeah.
Miro. And he came on and he did some adjustments to it, and he saw things in the images that I had chosen for the show that I had not seen, and he helped put together an order which I'm following exactly to the way the prints are oriented on the wall. And I'm really grateful to him to do that, because I didn't see these things because I'm doing this all stuff myself, and I didn't seem to ask you guys in our collective to take a look and get an opinion. I just sort of did it myself. And I realized it's important to have other people give input because, I'm sort of insular and seeing my things in one way. Yeah. When someone from the outside can look at it a different way and bring a new story or a narrative to the way the images are laid out. Because you just don't throw things up on the wall. You're talking about stuff about a book. It's a short form book.
And Mark
so when the show is up, I'll take pictures. Yeah, he was really good, and he was really good at explaining his thinking about the shots, what he saw in the images. Mm-hmm. So I do want to acknowledge him in the show. I'm definitely acknowledged him in my artist statement because I think it wouldn't look the same. It would just be a bunch of pictures, and now there's a little bit of a story going on that hopefully people will. I mean, I know it now, and. I will be able to sort of talk to somebody about it when I show it to this is the flow. But it was sort of magical that he could see that in the stuff that I just sort of, not randomly put up, but like after like I distilled of my images and put it up. Anyway, I wanted to make that before we segue.
So we're going from a show that you're putting on to a show that I went to that was put on by a famous photographer, Diane Arbus. I waited until the very last day that the exhibit was open in the Contemporary Calgary Gallery. It's the Science Center, I guess, the Science Center for the city now. One of them. And the science festival, like the late summer science festival was on, called Beakerhead. And so you could get free admission to the building. So bonus, I got free admission to go see the Arbus exhibit. I don't know why I said that, but anyway, it was just like, it was a weird day. There's so many people around in food trucks and kids walking in and out. And I'm like, do we need kids seeing the Diane Arbus exhibit?
I don't know about that.
So, but anyway, it turned out they weren't there. There was very few. I think there were a couple of families that brought their kids in because maybe they had heard about her or whatever, but they weren't in there for very long, and then they were leaving. So that was good. So I spent about an hour, a little more than an hour, about 150 prints, 151 prints were hanging there.
That's a lot of prints.
That's a lot of prints. And that is, take a deep breath. And if you know anything about her work, you know that it's not just fluffy aesthetics. It's deep human suffering, anxiety, disability, mental states. It's taxing kind of emotionally to go through that. So the prints were hung, if you kept turning left like you were in the maze, you got a rough chronological order of her work. There was some jumping around a little bit. Many of the prints, I think, just a rough estimate, maybe half of them were original prints that she did, that she created, and then other ones were printed by a trusted friend, or anyway, it was a master printer, did the other ones. And apparently he did a bunch of sort of like reissue prints that were created for collectors or collections around the world. And so these prints all came from Ontario. I think it's the Ontario Gallery. And they were printed, the ones that were not original prints from the original time were printed in 2016. So there was a blessing and a curse with that. Arbus herself, what I noticed, the prints are printed very dark. So they were almost the kind of, the inky black, almost too dark kind of thing. And the lighting was not the best in that venue. So you felt like, these were printed too dark. But once or twice I just kind of shone my flashlight on my phone and they're fine. It's just it was just not the ideal viewing circumstance for them. So once I got that out of my head.
It was really that dark in there?
They were really, they were dark, and the lights were, 15 feet on the ceiling shining down like a jewelry store almost. That was not proper gallery lighting. So I'll forgive them that. I mean, the fact that there were so many of those prints for such a noted photographer, I'll take it. I'm fine with that. So the prints were hung in loosely chronological order. Many of the early prints were hers, and so early family life and so on, and some street stuff in New York, acquaintances. There's a kind of famous early picture that she took of Anderson Cooper when he was a baby in 1960. And he was not identified in the picture, but it was just very young baby was the title of it. I guess the Arbuses knew, the Vanderbilts knew Gloria Vanderbilt. And so when Anderson was born, she just took a baby picture of him. So there's some historical pictures in there, the twins that we know with the beautiful eyes. the woman with the monkey. If you're not an Arbus fan, you can just go look up Diane Arbus, and these pictures will come up. They'll come up on your first page for sure. The exasperated boy holding the toy hand grenade, probably my favorite fun Diane Arbus picture was in there. I tried to look into detail.
I think I've seen the not the contact sheets from that, like the what led up to that that kid making that face. 'Cause, when you don't see the context of what it is, that picture is really, it's crazy. But then when you see the other pictures before and after, it's interesting. Anyway, sorry,
I seem to remember watching a doc where they caught up with that guy who grew up, and he's like in his 40s, and he says, "Yeah, I just remember being upset with this toy." It was just one moment in a boy's life, and now suddenly he is grimacing through the photographic history, as a 11-year-old boy with part of his overalls or whatever, his little outfit is torn down off his shoulder, and he's suspender, and he's holding this toy hand grenade. It's kind of funny. And then so I'm paying attention to the year. So there's a lot of late 50s. And then we get into 1960, and then you see this kind of concentration on closer framing of people, and getting emotional states out of them. Now, I understand from watching other documentaries, and I didn't learn this from the show, but that she had a mentor, was Lisette Model, was her mentor. And Lisette Model, she was famous for kind of her humorous pictures of life on the street. Mothers bending over with a child, making a face and things like that. A very kind of formal thing. And I don't know when that relationship started or how things went, but in 1963, when the picture started dating in 1963, you could see this turn of people who were disabled, people who were the circus freaks, if you want to call them that, the people of the circus. There's an interracial couple having tea behind in the tent at the circus. It would be nothing for us to see today, but it would have been subversive there. Some early 60s drag performers, which I found very poignant because there was such an earnestness and almost desperation in the way that they are depicted in those pictures, that they were, people living in fear and trying to express themselves in this way. It's like, it's a part of American history that I don't think we fully appreciate. And just these people trying so hard to become something. I thought it was quite moving. And I went through those pictures once, and I couldn't bring myself to go through them again, just because of I already had a bit of heaviness on board when I was walking through, seeing some of these other performers, or other people, not just performers, but people that are in these peculiar life circumstances. And then there's I thought maybe the most disturbing, but maybe the most cohesive collection of images called Untitled. They were late 60s. There were people who were in mental institutions, so various, developmentally disabled people or people simply with mental issues. A lot of them were taken outside. The subjects were taken outside and just arranged, standing on the sidewalk or on a lawn or at the beach, and showing sort of who they really are. There's both an intimacy to, like I worked with in a developmental center for developmentally challenged kids when I was in grade 12. When once a week I'd go to the elementary school where they had what they used to call the special class, and it was people who were developmentally disabled. And I worked very closely with those kids, and they knew me and so on. And I was on the bus with them very often too. They lived in the same community I did, so we'd be on the bus together and so on. So I knew these kids. I knew sort of what's going on with them. So I was able to react to them in that way, and at the same time knowing if you're not me and you're looking at these pictures, there's a gawking quality to it that's really strips the humanity out of these people. It's like, these are people who are locked inside all day long. They get outside and they're having fun and they're showing their joy the way they show it, which is not the way, not a smirk, like a way like, oh, it's a nice day. They're just exuding joy, which in a lot of ways looks very weird and disturbing to other people. And like my kind of being torn in the misunderstanding of how other people would react to these people having a good day at the beach or getting dressed up to go outside. So those Untitled ones to me were like, with a little bit of my background on board, really meant something to me there. And so
can I ask you something though?
Sure.
Interject something, because it got me thinking about something about, because initially you said the families came in and they left.
Yes.
Pretty quickly. Would those pictures have, do you think, you can't say, the same effect on people today, young people today, who would see them as they did perhaps when they were first made? I mean, because the world has changed so much. And when you talked about kids coming in, or when you first said that, I was like, my mom took me to all these different photo shows. So I ended up seeing pictures like hers.
Yeah.
When I was a very young person, and it affected me. But, it has an effect. Let's put it that way. But I seem to have turned out okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I'm thinking about kids today and the imagery that they're flooded with today, and the extremeness of the visuals that they're on a daily basis seeing. Yes. And then drop them into this Diane Arbus show. And you can't really know this, but
I'm trying to think. Yeah, I know, but it depends on how art literate you are too. Like if you're going in there and you see there's, the strippers from late 50s, early 60s, and the woman has her top off and she's just got her cigarette and she's turning towards the camera. It's made to look casual, but it is kind of a glare. There's a glare going on there, and it's not an erotic one at all. It's a woman who's doing a living, who's, probably in her 40s. Right. And she's comfortable in her body and everything, but it's not, she's not projecting her on stage, whatever, right? She's just in between shows, or she's having a post-show smoke.
Yeah, but let me, and I'm going to interrupt you there, because you had this reaction to these images because of your history, also your, photographic knowledge and experience and stuff like that. And what I'm imagining is younger people, maybe let's not kids, but like younger people, very younger people coming to see things like her imagery. I just can't imagine that it would have the same impact. I get what you're saying. Is it only going to impact that? Is only going to impact you as if you are now sort of aware of her as an artist and understand the context and stuff like that, rather than just looking
and also
at the
her ultimate demise too, right? And we should say that she did end her own life in 1971.
Right, that her whole arc of the story. How could she not be affected by these images? You're affected by these images, but I'm just wondering, people are so flooded with, let's say, horrific and extraordinary imagery today that they look at this and say, oh, big deal. What am I looking at? What do I care?
I would say, what I would qualify, I would say yes on most of what you're saying. I agree with, but there's something universal about Arbus's work specifically. I think it would resonate with the younger crowd. If I took a 20 something in there and asked them go through these, what do you see? What do you feel? And there's something, it's a very intense glare. Like you, if you're going to look at them and look over the details of what you're seeing, there's a lot of emotional and mental content there. And also one more thing I wanted to say before I forgot, which I think is just leaving my brain right now. Oh yes, I know what it is. And it was an observation that I shared with you guys, or with you specifically, having to do with what is she trying to do? Like, what is she trying to capture? And I have a theory that she, because she came from a kind of from a privileged background, and her husband Alan Arbus, which you might know from the TV show MASH, he played Dr. Sidney Friedman.
Sidney Friedman.
Sidney Friedman. He was Hawkeye's, one of Hawkeye's best buddies, and he was a sometime guest star on the show. Anyway, that's Alan Arbus. He was in real life. He and Diane had a popular commercial studio in the late 50s. Anyway, so they had a pretty good life, and she had the time and I think the money to be able to explore this to the extent that she could. So because of this, the subjects that she wanted were so not her. And my gut, I mean, I'm just as a sort of photographer trying to put myself in her head. I'm thinking she's trying to capture something of people dealing with actual trauma and actual difficulties in life that she could only imagine, and that she's doing her best to try and capture that. And I think that would take a toll on you, trying to crawl up into somebody else's life like that. And the content of the images, I mean, I haven't seen anything like that. I mean, I just have Diane Arbus pictures in my books and stuff, but we spend an hour with 150 images of, and the,
I can only imagine. Yeah.
Yeah. You're like, you're coming out of there a little bit different. Like it kind of, you're not talking on the drive home. You're like, I don't want to listen to any music.
Well, you are doing that if you've looked at them with the, intensity and interest like someone like you are doing.
But even if you're shallow,
I can see it affecting you.
Yeah, but if you're younger and whatever, and you were a little more shallow, even if you came away going, "Wow, that was really messed up," or "That was really effed up," like, okay, you had a reaction to that art, and so that's what I would hope. That's what I would hope that people would take from that show. It was a great number.
Sorry,
of prints.
There's a slight delay in our audio here, so
okay.
I don't really mean to interrupt you. But do you think they did 150 prints to really hit the viewers over the head with stuff? I mean, that is a lot of work of hers, and that's a lot of work in any show. I mean, even when we went to go see the Besher show, they had a lot, but I mean, it was a huge show, and I mean, 150 prints. Were they matted or something like that? And
yeah, they're all mounted. They were on boards.
Yeah, so I'm saying it's a huge saturation of her stuff, and
yeah.
So anyway, I mean, how could you not walk out of there not being affected?
Wow,
so
that's true. But I mean, I didn't expect it. And in fact, I read before that there were 150 prints, but that didn't mean anything. I was like, okay, I have all this material to look at. And I mean, it's the kind of thing that comes back, it's a little bit flippant to say, but there's a kind of a trauma of you remembering individual images or your state of mind going back and thinking about the show. And I think that's amazing. And I'm actually fortunate and lucky that I means the same thing, to have seen it now, because now I have a much better window into her, I think, into what I think she was about than in her artistic life. And so now I can see, I can see better where she fits into the pantheon of those famous mid-century photographers that we love so much. So
her ending was she committed suicide. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
I
don't remember the details of it.
No, but there was some crossover with her and Richard Avedon, right?
Yes, yeah.
Didn't he stay with her body when? What I remember reading in his biography, that I think he stayed with her body when they called the coroners to come and get her. So
okay. Yeah, I don't remember that. You could be right on that. Yeah.
No, it's just because I remember that. I mean, I was drawn to that. First of all, the world back then the world of photography was a lot smaller, so a lot of people knew each other. Yeah. There was a lot of crossover, and there was something poignant about. I'm not getting the details exactly right, but there was something poignant about him staying there. And I think it was her daughter who found her. I'm a little fuzzy on this and stuff like that, but there was something about that connection between him and her, staying with her body and being part of that, that whole scene at her end. That I just, like, in the whole story of photography, like those kind of moments are very memorable to me, especially because it's we think about photographers as being, okay, well, here are these pictures that they take and they present them and they share them and stuff like that, but we don't always think about the toll that whatever it is, good or bad, on the person who's creating that imagery. And the famous picture of I can't remember the photographer's name, and I'm sorry for the photojournalist who took the picture of the child resting on in I think some African country, and there's a vulture behind the kid.
Oh yeah.
Do you know that picture?
Yeah, I know the picture, but I can't.
And the photographer ended up taking his own life not long after that. And we see these things that the photographers create, and we just don't know what is going on in the person.
Yeah.
But anyway, sorry, it's a little.
Well, Salgado was same kind of thing, right? He'd had enough of. He did that work in the Congo where there's bodies and front end loaders and really, and then he kind of mentally and physically broke down and had to move back to Brazil. It's you can't help but wonder was going through her mind. Certainly from 1963, just how that work turned. Anyway, it's something else, really is.
Well, hopefully that kind of show will come to other places. I mean, or at least that maybe not at that
this
scale.
One I think is going across Canada because it's a Canadian collection of the work.
Is it really? Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
It'd be nice if something like that would come to the States.
Yeah. Well, I think and I'm sure that either MoMA or the Met have probably quite a few original prints of hers.
Yeah, they do. I just don't know how often they'll put them out as one giant collection of work. But
I'll dig up the schedule for that show. I think it was going to be set up somewhere else soon.
Yeah. But, all right. Well, thanks for sharing that experience, because I think it's an important thing to remember, to go see these kind of shows when they come up. I always try to tell students, like, go see shows. Stop looking at the pictures on your web browser and something like that, and go and have the experience. The idea of going someplace, even in this darkened, the environment is affecting how you're seeing the pictures, and what the fact that you have to physically move through them and look at them with your eyes and be there with them. You can't. It's almost like you can't.
And knowing that they're to her hand, like the twins. The twin girls and the boy with the grenade. She printed those, and they're right there in front of you. And that's fantastic.
Yeah, you can't beat that.
No,
it's something that I just go blue in the face trying to tell people, go look at things like this, because even when you just go to a museum, that the print in front of you is part of history, is like part of their history and something like that.
Mm-hmm.
When they felt the same way when I went to go see going back to Avedon, seeing the giant portraits, the panoramics, the murals.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know he didn't print them himself, but like that was part of,
But
and I was so worried.
It was a dance creating them, though, right?
Yes, it was. And knowing that those things were, in his presence, that they weren't just, removed, 10 times from us by way of, the internet.
Well, and he's walking the same floorboards you and I were too, right? So
yeah. Well, I'm going to pause for a second. Just hold on. The audio is really wacky on here. I don't know if you heard it. Hang on. I just put up on the Dropbox paper the outro. Do you have a link for it, or should I just...
I had it open here.
Okay. Just so that we can read that and be good. Because we're at about an hour now, so I think we can wrap it up because we actually did a perfect show.
Okay. Let me open up.
I yapped for a half an hour and you talked for half an hour.
It just occurred to me we were talking about show. What show? I've been to a show. What show?
Yeah, this is great.
It was probably the best, most internalized show I've ever been to. Okay, so the outro. I've got the doc here. Oh yeah, here we are. Okay,
and then we can record. All right, so let's do 3, 2, 1. Well, that was really wonderful description of the experience, and so thanks for sharing that. I'm glad you got to see it in the last day,
and for free.
And for free. Yeah, it's like next time, don't wait until the last day. Because sometimes you might want to go see this. I don't know. Would you have gone to see this show twice?
Oh, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So give yourself next time. Give yourself some time and go so that you can go and see it again. I love seeing shows twice because just like anything, you start picking up on things that you don't see the first time, because the first time you're there and you're looking at it, you're getting this whole experience. And the second time, now you can go and like, oh, let me look at this and look at that. So
I did the best I could. I walked around twice. I went through.
Okay, that's
why I was there for an hour and a half.
All right, we'll take that. We'll accept that.
I did what I could, man.
You did great. You did. You won't be able to. It won't take you an hour and a half to walk through my show. I can tell you that.
I don't know. Maybe there's a lot of detail in there because you're big
with
the details.
No, I'm just never mind.
And color too. Diane Arbus wasn't in color.
Oh, actually, 4 of my prints are black and white in this show.
Oh, that's right.
So I have a mix. I have a mix of stuff. But anyway, we've come to the end. Wow, we actually did manage to find topics that were similar, which was great.
Cool.
So where are we looking for you in the world?
You can find me on Vero and Twitter at wrosinphoto. I'm at Instagram at wardrosinfineart. Facebook, you can find me at wardrosinphoto. I have a website where I sell the odd fine print, and we used to sell the rodeo book there, and that's at rosin.ca, rosin.ca. And my little side hustle and our unofficial sponsor is Ornis Photo, and that is at ornis.photo on the internet. And Antonio, where can we find you?
Well, now you can find me in all sorts of places. Vero, Twitter, and Flickr. I'm still AM Rosario, but now I'm on Instagram again. So start following me. I want to get the followers back up at AM Rosario Photo. So AM Rosario Photo. Website is amrosario.com. Facebook, of course, is Rosario Photo. And our website is streetshots.photography. And so is our Facebook is Street Shots Podcast. And look, subscribe to our Substack newsletter. I got a newsletter, trying to work on one for this week. So go to subscribe to streetshots.substack.com. And if you want to leave us a voicemail at SpeakPipe, at speakpipe.com/streetshots. And if you want to buy us a coffee or a beer or a new microphone.
Easy now.
No. Buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Antonio Rosario. So anyway, wow, we got through another show. And so that's great. So when this show airs, my show will be up, and I'm sure I'll talk about it. I'll put pictures up someplace and share. But that'd be cool. Thanks for joining me tonight. Yeah.
Outstanding. It was a good talk, and we didn't have anything to talk about.
We didn't have any, because we always have something to talk about. We're good that way. All right.
I guess.
All right. Good night to you, Rosin.
You too, Rosario.
Rosin and Rosario. There's a lot of R's and O's and S's in those names. All right. Thanks for hanging out tonight, and have a good night.